Alrighty. So we seem to have had an internet interruption, which never happens to us. And so I'm hoping this will append to the first live stream and we'll just continue, but I'm not certain if that's the case. But I think we're back. We'll see what happens here. Or we're going to have a second video on here and I'll have to rename it later. So let's see if anyone shows up. They're all like on the last one, like, where did he go? Okay, I see 11 eyeballs. I don't know what happened, guys. We just had a glitch in the Matrix. But in the meantime, I said I was going to show you guys some pictures. So here is, let me change here to a different screen. This was the bubble on the Gorgonian. Yeah, you got the Wheel of Death, so did I. So you see there's a big bubble on there, right? I'm going to shrink this down so you can kind of see. And you can see how the glass was filthy on the side of the tank. So I went ahead and I grabbed the cleaning magnet and I tried to clean. I'm going to put this right here. And then this immediately happened. And I was so disappointed. It just collapsed. So, yeah. That's the difference between cleaning your tank and not. So I guess it's a rule, don't clean your tank. And then I got one more picture here of it from the same view as the first one. And you can see it's just a nothing. I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it popped, because I didn't actually have physical contact with it. But yeah, that's from a perfectly round orb to a raisin. Anyway, if you've seen this and you know what it is, please let me know. I was very surprised to see it. I mean, I don't think it was something that drifted and landed on the coral. I think the coral made it. I don't know why it made it. It's strange. I did notice that two of my hammer corals are basically doing that bubble right now in one of the polyps, which means that the head is about to split, which is always exciting. But the Gorgonian, I've never seen this thing happen before on there, so go figure. Let's see. Let me come back to the Q&A. I want to throw this on the screen. Edward, thank you very much for the super chat. That was awesome of you. Oh, hang on. We're on the wrong thing. This one here, not the end of the show. He says, 80 days is too young for babies. And I blame social media. Yeah, it definitely, those little babies are on their screens too much. And they're learning things on their TikToks that is causing chaos. And now we have babies having babies. It's just a nightmare. Austin said, do you find that the new crabs hide a lot? I rarely see mine during the day. I catch them later at night, munching on the edges of rockwork. But they tend to burrow in the sand most of the time. The Pithos crabs, they're just out and about when they want to be. They can kind of be completely out of sight. When I drop food in the tank, they definitely come running out. So I don't know if you've noticed when you're feeding Austin, but you could try and see if there's a reaction to the crabs coming out at that point. If you're talking about other crabs, I feel like crabs tend to be pretty protective and shy the majority of the time. You know, they don't really like present themselves like a cleaner shrimp would, or a skunk shrimp or something like that, that, you know, tends to be out and about and beautiful. I think they're more opportunistic. I think they're in crevices. I think they're looking for meals. They're resting, they're molting, they're doing all the things that crabs do. But mine were out and about. I shared some pictures of mine today. The three that I put in Caitlin's reef, basically, I guess almost a month ago now, roughly, they have eaten most of the algae off most of the rocks. There's this one rock at the back that still has a lot of this weird stringy stuff that I never could figure out what it was. And by stringy, I mean it's like thick, coarse hairs are coming off the rock, and I've ripped it off, and it just keeps coming back. And I'm like, I'm hoping the Pitho crabs will just rip that all off and get rid of it entirely, and then I'll have nice, clean rock. And then we'll see what I can put on there that might be different. It's going to be tricky of what other thing I can put in there coral-wise because of the lemon peel. And then I'm also wondering, will the Pitho crabs remove any zoanthids, for example, that I thought might be a good choice for that tank? I don't know. We'll have to see. If there was more questions in the chat, I'm sorry. When everything got lost, I lost the rest of the live chat. Let me see if maybe I'll get lucky and I can jump onto the YouTube channel and see if I can see the chat that we had. All right, let's see. Keith Berkelhammer, thank you very much, guys. It was not Ken. I knew that was wrong. Emmanuel says I'd be worried about those boxes trapping heat along with the sound. I was told that heat was not a factor, and this is literally just sound dampening. So we're doing that for now. So nice to have other ways to see the live chat. Let's see. Okay, Maple Story said, out of coral consumption, does alkalinity fluctuate throughout the day? The reason I ask is I try to test at least the same time every day, but sometimes I'm an hour or several hours off. Yeah, alkalinity consumption is something that for the longest time we didn't track at all. And then when Jim Walsh made the alkalinity monitor, he designed this gizmo and he spent a lot of time fabricating the pieces he needed to make this device work. And then he started measuring alkalinity every hour for 24 hours. And then he was measuring it even more frequently. He was crazy obsessed. And he says all the alkalinity is being used during the light cycle. And it's really not being used at all during the night cycle when the corals would, in theory, be at rest. And that device, he brought it with him to Magna. I did a video about it. That interview is on this channel if you want to go back 6 or 7 years, and you could see the original prototype. And then he showed it to different companies at the show, trying to find someone that was willing to buy the idea and make or mass produce this gizmo. And that's where the Trident came from. That has been on our on the Apex systems ever since, which is pretty neato. And so I have alkalinity tested on my tank about, well, 4 times a day. It's at every 6 hours, at midnight, at 6 a.m., at noon, and at 6 p.m. And it's constantly doing its thing. The reason we dose alkalinity early in the morning into our aquariums is to raise the pH up when the pH tends to be at its lowest point. But that also puts that alkalinity in the water column early for the corals to utilize throughout the day. So there is that benefit. That's why I don't recommend dosing alkalinity 24 hours a day. You know, if let's say you had to put in 24 milliliters a day, I would not put in 1 milliliter every hour. I think it's insane. If you wanted to break it up, you could put in 12 milliliters at 6 a.m. and 12 milliliters at 7 a.m. And that way you had 2 little doses. But to be honest, I would just let it dose. If it takes 10 minutes to dose or it takes an hour to dose, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just get the alkaline into the tank. Before we had dosing pumps, we would hold the little graduated cup in our hand and we would do this. We would pour it in. So, I mean, to sit there and put it in all day long, there is no plausible benefit that will make your reef tank do better than mine by you trickling it in every hour for 7 hours versus me putting it all in at 9 a.m. So just get it in the morning. And like I said, the early hours, 6 to 8 a.m. would be that sweet spot because that's when the pH would be the lowest on your aquarium normally. It all depends on your light cycle and whether you're nocturnal or whether your aquarium is nocturnal or not. But if you're one of those guys that works second shift or third shift and your lights are on a different schedule, then yeah, you would dose when the pH is the lowest on your aquarium. So that would be that. All right, let's see what the next question was. Dwitster wanted to know what it would be like to have a microphone inside the sump to hear all the sounds that are in the water column. Some people have taken their GoPros and, some people take their iPhones and they stick them underwater and you can hear all those sounds. And then when you go on the reef, the natural reefs, and you're diving, you hear all these clickings and sounds that reefs are not quiet, but our equipment definitely makes a noise, just like the motors on boats and the propellers, they all make sounds underwater as well. So it's not quiet by any means. And the fact is, it's kind of interesting that our livestock does not seem to be bothered too much by the equipment that we use, for the most part. All right, that was all of those. Let's see. Oh, nice. Austin says, yes, mine are... Oh, sorry. I was in the wrong screen again. I got all excited. I'll stick this on the correct screen. He says, yes, mine are Pithos. I got them to help deal with the Dictyota outbreak since Reef Cleaner says they can eat it. Shout out to Coral Magazine for helping me identify the algae, by the way. Well, that macroalgae issue was great. And then this issue, I talk about the Pitho crabs, and I give you a whole bunch of details. And that issue is coming very soon. I would say, I mean, today is the 25th. I think some people are going to start getting their magazines around the 27th of this month. Others will get it closer to Halloween. And then some people won't get it till like the first week in November. It takes a little bit of time to get them distributed to everybody across the nation. And it's funny because sometimes I'll get mine super early, and then sometimes I won't get mine until everyone got theirs. And it's like, why was mine the last one delivered? It's craziness. But in the end, I'm just glad that we're putting out a really good, high-quality magazine. And this issue is going to be fantastic. You guys have a lot of exciting things to look forward to. You're going to enjoy the read. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm going to go back to that slide because it's so pretty. I really like how we did that that animation where you can see all the different issues. Might be too fast. But we had a lot going on. Yeah. So mutual relationships, that is what this issue is going to be about. And it's going to be great. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that everyone read this magazine. Because there's a lot of, great knowledge in it. And unfortunately, there's so much bad knowledge on the internet. And that's been an ongoing problem forever. I mean, back in the day, when we used forums, like exclusively, like Reef Central was the main one. There was another one. I think it was... No, can't think of it. But I was on Reef Central for about 7 years. And even in those build threads, there was so much misinformation and so many people spending time correcting people, including myself. I was constantly saying, no, that's not right. This is the correct answer. What you just said was incorrect. That went on for a long time. And it's one of the reasons why I wrote so many articles that are on melovesreef.com to help educate people without all the noise. And ultimately, they're going to read my article and decide for themselves if they believe me or not. And that is understandable. I get that. And especially in this day and age where everything should be doubted and nothing can be true and everything is fake, it's really rough, right? So for us to know what's factual and can be verified with references, that's why we spend so much time to make sure these magazines that are printed are putting out accurate information. And it's really important that we keep doing that because, before there was forums, before there was social media, before there was books, and we would read a book to learn about something. And, hardly anyone does that anymore, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. All right. Well, listen, I'm sorry about the glitch in the middle. That was unplanned for. I don't know what happened, but it definitely affected all of us. And I would like to just remind you, today is Water Test Saturday. If you have not tested your water yet today, please do. If you have multiple tanks, test all the tanks. Because knowing what all the water parameters are of all your systems is the best way to make the livestock continue to thrive and live a long life. And we want to do the best we can for our wet pets because we want them to be stunning and awesome. And we want to enjoy their antics and we want to show them off when people come over to our homes. So don't, neglect your tanks. Don't neglect your water testing because water testing saves lives. Kevin, I'm so sorry that you showed up just now. He says, hey, y'all, I'm late, but I made it. But here we are. It's the end of the show. Bye, guys. I'll see you again next week.